Okay. Hello, chat. Hello, people. Just making sure I can see the chat window here. And I'll be with you in just a second. All right. How about you see what I see? How's that? Okay. All right, chat. I'm coming to you right now. Let's make sure that this microphone works. Let's see. Little photo boost so you can see me there. My computer is very upset and is chugging along at this point. Okay. Let's see. Oh, hello. Very, very sad that that my big face is on your TV. Sorry about that. Okay. Put that down here. Bring this live chat window. Take that up. Don't need you seeing my chats with my friends. Well, what I changed from yesterday was I actually hooked up this H6N that we use for recording podcasts as my microphone. I knew all these things that that we used to do, and I totally forgot it. Okay. All right. So the purpose of this this stream is mainly to do two things. One is to just talk a little bit about the Patreon changes that that have happened in the past past week or so, because they've really thrown us and a lot of other people for a loop, and kind of give you some insight into some of the things that we're working on. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing. We're doing this really big overhaul of a lot of things that Versus the Universe is known for doing, and I thought it would be a little less than transparent to you know, let everyone in on this. I don't think I have my email up. All right, cool. So the way this is going to work is at any time during this, if you have a question, just put it in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer it. First, before we go on, just to get all the Patreon stuff out of the way, we released an update on Wednesday, whenever we first got the email about the Patreon feed changes, and we came out pretty strongly saying that we do not like the Patreon changes. I'm not a fan of it. The other two LLC members, Chris and Sam, they are not fans of it. Do this too, so I get my side hustle stuff out of there. How about I just delete this? I'm just going to delete that. Perfect. There we go. That was bugging me too. I hate all those icons. But yeah, we released an update on Wednesday saying that we were very much in opposition to the new Patreon fees. Obviously, we wanted to get out and tell everybody as soon as we knew. We got that email around, I think 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and we got a response out around like 6 or 7. We always want to make sure that we're being upfront with our patrons and just letting you know how we feel. Patreon is essentially taxing you for supporting us, and we're not about that. It's especially impactful for the people that are donating $1 to $5. It seems like they are actively trying to push out the people that are trying to donate at smaller levels. And I'm sure you've heard this from multiple other creators, but that's the backbone of where our funding comes from. I think we have more $1 patrons than anything else, and uh, it was very, I don't want to say cool because nothing about this situation is cool, but a lot of people came to me and said, I want to keep supporting you, but I'm not going to pay $1.39 after tax just to support you. And I get it. Um, so before we go through with anything else, I just need to make a blanket statement. If anything about the Patreon fees like offends you to a point where you do not feel comfortable working with Patreon, we totally get it. It sucks. And if we could change it, we would. Um, we are actively talking about moving to different platforms. We have an LLC meeting on the 16th where we're going to be discussing just the possibilities of other platforms. A lot of people have come to us asking us about Drip, the Kickstarter Patreon kind of model. Sorry, the Kickstarter product that follows the Patreon model. And we're looking at it. It's invite only right now. If we could sign up for it right now, we would. It's really just a matter of we have a lot of changes that we are going to be enacting at the start of the year. We are going to be changing some Patreon tiers around, and we were going to be introducing some new content, and we thought that that might throw some of our patrons for a loop. Um, in addition to that, in March, we planned on launching a Kickstarter for our first card game. We've released card games before, but this is the first uh, game that we're actually like bringing to market. We've play tested it for the past 6 months. Everyone from Polygon to The Verge has really enjoyed it, and so our number one goal is to kind of back up off Patreon for a little bit. Um, and focus on bringing this game to market. And then once that is done, we'll go back hard on Patreon. But with all these changes, it's really thrown a wrench into the gears. So a lot of talk about that is happening right now, and that's one of the reasons why I have some hard cider. Mm. Uh, so if you have questions about the Patreon, where Versus is headed, put them in the chat. I'll answer them. But one of the biggest projects that we're working on is something that we've been calling internally. We've been calling it Astound, and we essentially were looking at making something that would kind of be very challenging, very fulfilling, but also directly in our wheelhouses. So about 2 months ago, I made a list of all the things that we were good at. We're really good at producing music. We're really good at shooting video. We're good at making podcasts. We're getting much better at doing atmospheric stuff through audio content. So what's a way for us to marry all these things together? And that is a project that, like I said, we're calling Astound for right now. It's going to have a bunch of different phases, but I've taken the time the past few months to do some research. And a lot of that research involves superheroes because, of course, it's always going to be superheroes. I've been researching stuff like Batgirl. This is fantastic Cameron Stewart interpretation of Batgirl. I absolutely love it. I've been reading the new DC Rebirth stuff by Jeff Johns that started last June, and probably my favorite is Miss Marvel by G. Willow Wilson. Miss Marvel is just one of my favorite books right now because they do so many good things with brevity. Like it's nuts. You immediately connect to everything Kamala wants and has aspirations for in the first issue, and there's such a soul behind it. Um, but in looking at those heroes and those books, yes, Molar Duck, they're absolutely research. Um, in in trying to create an origin story for ourselves, I've been looking at these and some of the other Marvel books. I'm a big Marvel fanboy, so it was interesting for me to dive into more of the Batgirl DC stuff. But we've begun writing our own little origin story for a character that we would like to introduce next year. Her name is Estelle Oxley. Um, before going forward, I'm using this program, Final Draft 10. I absolutely love Final Draft 10. I've been working with Final Draft ever since my first script, which is right here. I'm gonna feel super old, but I've been using Final Draft ever since. Look at that, 2010. My God, 7 years ago. I feel so weird about that. Um, Final Draft is essentially a tool that formats everything with you uh, to do a screenplay, um, and it was invaluable to me. And thanks to the funding of our patrons, I was able to upgrade to Final Draft 10, which is like this on steroids. It's awesome. I love it. Um, I wanted to take you through the process of how I create a character and how I form a first draft. I was able to go through and create a first draft pretty easily the past 2 or 3 weeks, and I just kind of wanted to take you on the journey of how I got there. So I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to go out of email immediately. Haha! Don't look. Yeah. Okay. So first thing I do for any story is I essentially write a treatment. Um, with Estelle's story, her story is called Echo. With Estelle's story, um, I always try to outline exactly what I want to write, or put in the specific beats for what I want the story to see. So let's make this a little bit smaller. Oh, doesn't want to go smaller. All right, fine. Let's take this down here. Uh, so you can see that all I did for this first episode is I kept myself to a 5 paragraph maximum, and I didn't even get the 5 paragraphs, but I wanted to set up a beginning, middle, and end for this. The beginning would be this part here where we start up. That'd be one. The middle. Oh, the middle should be there. And then in my opinion, great stories always uh, sprinkle in a little bit in the first 2 acts, and the third act they all kind of combine. Um, the third act is when everything kind of comes together, all properly formatted before I started this, and then it totally went to shit. So I wrote out the basic story beats. The first beat, Estelle is leaving class. She's leaving class at the University of Chicago, and she's on her way to a cabaret space. Act two, she arrives at the cabaret. She sings a song, and we're going to get into songwriting a little bit later. Three, she heads home, and that's where a bunch of the things that happen in Acts 1 and 2 culminate. But everything that I absolutely want to happen in the script is in the story treatment. Everything that I want people to experience as part of the story is pre-written here. Hi, Muller wife. It's very nice. I will try to keep technical difficulties down to a minimum for the rest of this. I apologize. Um, so like I was saying, everything that I want to see in the story is in the story treatment, and then that's when I get to writing, and that's when all the fun stuff starts. Because when you write, things happen that you don't really anticipate. So let's take a look. For Act 1, Estelle is finishing up a class at the University of Chicago and heads to catch a bus to the cabaret where she sings a few nights a week. On the way, she phones her brother, who hopes she has a good performance. So pretty simple, right? It's easy, it's light, it's airy. But when you actually start to write the script, you tend to figure out what the voice of that character is. If we go to Act 1 as it appears in the script, let's see. You can see it's already a little bit more layered. So it opens. Internal scene, a grad school music classroom. Estelle sitting in class, watching the clock. The minutes pass like hours. So immediately there's something that's in the script that wasn't in the treatment. In order to build a little bit of suspense and add something to what the character is, I made her a little bit fidgety. I made her immediately start looking at that clock, because where does she want to go? What's she want to do? And hopefully the viewer wants to know that as well. Cut to a text from Ellis. We can give you 10 minutes at the top, but only if you get here for the opener slot. So immediately there's a sense of urgency. You don't essentially know where she's going, what she's doing, but you know that she has to get there and that there's a time constraint on it. Estelle types back feverishly. The professor, yes, Miss Oxley, did you have a question? And I always think that characters in classrooms offer up a really interesting time to give some sort of development. In this case, Estelle says, we've been going over music therapy and how it has theoretical applications, but do you have any examples of how this could be, how this kind of therapy can be applied to help people right now? It's a little bit of a cheat because I'm using some sort of exposition to tell a little bit more. It's kind of like an info dump, and I hate that, and that's something that will get edited out in future drafts. But through Estelle's answer, we understand that they are talking about music therapy. Let's see. The professor, I think someone has been reading ahead. Estelle, I figured since we were getting close to the end of class, I could help with a segue. So in my mind, Estelle coming in and saying something that will help with the segue informs that she's a little bit smarter than you would have thought at the top of the scene. You know why she's getting out. You see that she immediately had a solution to the problem, and she is in control of this situation. And that sort of thinking comes from a character breakdown that I like to make before I start writing anything. Okay. Here's a question when you have a free minute. How do you have a voice of a character who has a wide breadth of experiences you don't have yourself? So this is a very good question and something that I was anticipating somebody say. This is something that I was anticipating people asking. I'm obviously writing a woman. I'm not a woman. I do not identify as a female. I'm actively looking for a writing partner for this because I don't want to make a story about someone who identifies as female coming from a male perspective. I'm not in the business of doing that. I have lines open to a few people that I'd like to work with on this. My idea is that I will pitch them the overall concept for this Echo story, give them the first 2 episodes that I've written, and invite them to tell me what's wrong and hopefully develop it into a more full story. One of the things that Versus wants to do is, as much as we possibly can, without getting it wrong, we want to have more diverse voices in our programming. It's really easy for me and Sam to write a song that is an 80s power ballad or like a 90s alt rock song because that's what we do. That's what we grew up with. Those are the experiences that we have. But one of the main goals of 2018 is inviting more people to work with us that don't have the same experiences as we do. Specifically with this project is kind of my baby, and I won't have this go into production without a writing partner that can help me with those experiences. But I can't even talk. That being said, whenever we start a new project, we always make one of these, which is basically a character chart of what we think the facets of somebody is. So for Estelle, and this is something I love about superhero stories, essentially, and you see this a lot in DC. You don't see it as much in Marvel, but you see this a lot in DC. You'll have people that are essentially ideas, and these ideas are manifested as superheroes. Shazam is oftentimes portrayed as a very young, optimistic tank who always believes in the greater, who always believes in protecting people, who always believes in saving someone. And oftentimes you'll see Shazam interact with somebody like Superman, who believes those things, but Superman also has all this experience and he's a little bit more hardened and he's still happy, but he's got dirt on the lens, so to say. So we always like building our characters in terms of what's the idea, what are their core values and beliefs, mold them into somebody that is human, and then go from there and see what kind of obstacles we can put them, what we can put in their way. So Estelle, I've classified as a pragmatic optimist. Um, Estelle, I keep thinking that the function of her thought is to guide action. Um, Estelle is a realist in the way that she understands the way the world works, but she always believes the best in it. Um, I was driving with my beautiful fiance Liz back from Thanksgiving, and she said something that was very enlightening. Uh, she said she was describing somebody as, with that person, I always think they're on the right journey, even if they don't know what the destination is. Um, and I started thinking about that, and I should actually write that here. A beautiful journey, even if they don't know what the destination is. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way to describe somebody, because everyone's known somebody in life where like they're amazingly brilliant, they're inspiring, but maybe they don't have a direction. I think that's a really interesting thing for a character. Um, I also attached another quote to Estelle, stolen directly from Final Fantasy IX. Zidane says, "You don't need a reason to help people." That was my senior quote in high school. That's in my yearbook. Uh, Estelle is musically inclined. Uh, One thing I love, the RPG in me sees a lot of similarities with Fate. I've never played with the Fate system. Um, yes, I totally agree with you, Molar Deck. I've never played the Fate system. I haven't played a ton of RPGs. It's kind of like a dark mark on my nerd resume, but we're actively fixing that. Um, one thing one thing I love about Estelle is that we had written a song 2 years ago uh, called "My Life Every Day," and it was all about somebody that was doing the maximum amount of work and getting the minimal output, and they were happy with that. They didn't really mind that. And the more I thought about that, the more I thought it's a really interesting way to describe a character. So Estelle, she just wants to survive. She doesn't need to be successful. It's something that she can aspire to, but she's perfectly fine doing the work. And characters that are happy just doing the work make me very happy. Um, Seeing characters that take pleasure in doing something always make me happy. I used to be a fan of things like The Office, where you'd see people go to their job day in day out and just be miserable, and I'm done with that. I don't need that right now. I need happiness. I need optimism. And I always like to describe a character as a color. And Estelle felt like purple. Uh, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But jazz, baby, yeah. Um, Yep, that is definitely two strikes. No RPGs and dislikes Mysteria. I like RPGs just fine. I love Dragon Age RPG and I love 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. I just don't really get to play a whole lot. Um, but again, we're fixing all that. I'm super, super excited for this RPG system I just backed on Kickstarter called Kids on Bikes. Um, I would love to use Kids on Bikes for a facet of this project uh, when we get a little bit deeper into it. All right, and Lewis, a little bit less fleshed out. Um, Lewis was a late game addition to this idea. We really knew a lot more about Estelle going into it, but Lewis not so much. Let's go back. So Estelle essentially is able to get out of class, hails a cab, and that brings us to a scene that I always like to write: cabaret scenes. Oh, who are you? You might just message me something important. Have I seen the Death Stranding trailer? That's a whole different topic. um, okay, chat's good. All right. So, um, the second act was when she arrives at the cabaret, she sings for the crowd, "I just want to get by." Um, if you can't tell, we all love music here. And the past few years, we've been really lucky to have people support us on Patreon for writing some music. Estelle is a cabaret singer who's also studying music therapy. That part's a little autobiographical. I almost went to school for music therapy, and I think it's a very interesting field. But I've spent a lot of my life around cabaret songs, and I think that with what we want to do with Estelle, making her a cabaret singer it's just a kind of a no-brainer. So in the first draft of this, internal, the Chai Cab room backstage. This is not based upon any actual Chicago cabaret place. Just the Chicago cabaret room seemed like a decent name. We're introduced to Mickey, who's a stagehand. And I always think back to how writers like Joss Whedon, however you may think of him now, Joss's dialogue is really great. He can tell a lot about a character and just quips and asides. And I mean, it's almost stupid for me to try to not borrow from Joss because he's so good at this type of dialogue. But Mickey, you gonna change? Estelle, into a star? Yeah. No, I'm wearing this. Mickey, well, you've got 10 seconds. Estelle, oh, you're always so good at calming me down, Mickey. Well, you're welcome. I like these short exchanges because you can already see what the relationship is with Mickey and Estelle, and obviously, whatever performers we get to portray these people on camera, it could shape it a little bit differently. But let's talk a little bit about writing songs. Writing songs, or more specifically, writing lyrics for screenplay's sake and for story's sake. In my opinion, whenever you're writing songs, you can go two ways. You can tell a story, or you can show subtext. Some of the people that I really look up to in terms of songwriting are John Kander, Fred Ebb, and Kerrigan and Loudermilk. I think Kerrigan and Loudermilk, for my money, are the best songwriters in the business right now. I obviously love Stephen Sondheim, but with Estelle, we definitely took a direction with it. The environment kind of informs a lot of what's happening, but there's essentially nobody in this cabaret parlor when Estelle gets up to sing, which, if you're anything like me, that can be it's always interesting as a performer going out on stage and like not knowing who's going to be there. And you can't really see anybody, but you can kind of see a little bit in the limelight. And if that limelight falls on somebody you know, it's always really cool. But if that limelight falls on like an empty chair, it shouldn't affect you, but it does. So Estelle walks out. She sees nobody there. I believe in the second draft of this, we have that there's like somebody there on a really horrible date. But it comes time for her to sing. And like I said, you either need to tell a story, like a character story, or you need to tell subtext. With Estelle, we had that song, My Life Every Day. So the chorus of the song goes like this. Don't tell me that I'm funny. Don't tell me that I'm sad. When I do the work I do, I'm the best I've ever had. So a lot of cabaret songs typically tell a character story. One of my favorite character songs for a cabaret is there's Arthur in the Afternoon by Kander and Ebb, and there's, oh gosh, I can't think of the other song now. Oh, I feel like a jerk. But typically at a cabaret, somebody will portray a character, or the song that we're kind of going for is subtext, something that comes from the heart, something that informs the type of person that's singing. When I was still in the Conservatory for Musical Theater, we would have these audition workshops. And in these workshops, hey, are you a personality role or are you a character role? And that is something that that we have to think a lot about with these characters. Estelle's a real person. She's a fully rounded character. So she is what we would call a personality role. Somebody real, somebody relatable, somebody lifelike. A 2-bit character like Mickey, the stagehand, that's going to be a character role because we don't need him to be fully formed at this point. We need him to just be in adverse feeling or color on the spectrum to Estelle, so she has someone to bounce off of. But Estelle is singing the song "My Life Every Day." Don't tell me that I'm funny. Don't tell me that I'm sad. When I do the work I do, I'm the best I've ever had. When the people are in, oh, I can't even write this, and I've written these lyrics so many times. When the people are in their seats, it's their money they've had to pay. I don't see a dime of it. This is my life every day. So it's going to come down a lot to the person performing it. But the underlying message of the song is that Estelle is happy performing for essentially nobody. There's not a lot of people at this cabaret. And I think that this is something that's kind of hard to nail, specifically in musical theater, because if you pour it on too thick, then it's schlocky and it's not amazing. And you can get away with that in a character song because you're playing a character, but when you're trying to do a personality role, it's a little bit different. However, I've broken a cardinal rule. Whenever you're singing on a screenplay, you should capitalize everything. I did not do that. If we take a look at Code Monkey, oh, where'd it go? There's a lot of singing here. All Code Monkey stuff is capitalized. Yeah. Okay, let's see. I got you with me still. He's here. Does anyone have any questions? I'm kind of going mile a minute with a lot of this stuff because I haven't streamed a whole lot before, and this is something that we primarily do for higher tier patrons. And I'd like to start doing this for more patrons because it's my opinion that if you're paying to support us on Patreon, you should be getting more content. We still need to make it enticing for the people that are donating like $15 or $20 a month. But if you have any questions, I've got chat open. Just let me know. Don't need you right now. Need you. Oh, very cool. You watched Code Monkey today. Man, I'm like 40 pounds thinner in that. I still have I have similar hair in that though. I don't have this little alfalfa sprout. Yeah. I actually wrote Code Monkey as a way of I wrote Code Monkey in a weekend because we were trying to plan this big, huge musical web series that never got off the ground because it was way too much for us to take on out of college. I wrote Code Monkey as a way to see if I could write screenplays, and it worked out all right. The actual story itself had the whole second act taken out of it. If you can see here, oh, man, why did I thought I was being so cool naming a character Samir. I'm so stupid. That was a really dumb move. I regret that a lot. When we filmed Code Monkey, we actually had to cut out all of the second act because the lighting was awful. We were filming it in our director's apartment. Filmed every scene. We had this duet, Guy and Samir, singing "The Future Soon" and "Mr. Fancy Pants" by Jonathan Colton. And the lighting was just so bad, and it looked awful when you put it up against stuff from the first and second act. It was awful. It was so bad. It's somewhere on a hard drive. I don't know. It was just bad. That was my buddy Mike Mazaka, who was playing Samir. I went to college with him, did countless shows with him. He's also a Chicago-based performer. Yeah, good guy. real good guy. We actually cut everything and went, yep, right here to the third act. But one thing that I noticed about this screenplay that's already different than this first act of Echo is everything that's in the Echo draft right now are things that I absolutely want, things that I think are great. And with Code Monkey, there is an awful lot in the first draft of this that I thought were great, but were not. And it's always helpful when somebody else can go through and like hack it to bits. This third draft only goes up into, oh, this is the whole thing. Yeah, at the end we were going to sing I Feel Fantastic. We were losing light, so we cut it. We had we had a bunch of stuff that I wanted to do, and then when production stuff gets in the way and light and camera and crew, you kind of do what you can. But everything that's in the final shooting script of Code Monkey is stuff that we absolutely needed. There's a bunch of stuff here right now, like this accompanist, giving the accompanist a specific line, a specific focus to have a reaction specifically here, a retort. Not needed. That's something that should just happen organically during the day of the shoot, and it's just included in the frame. But this first draft, I think, ends at 8 pages. Oh gosh, is it? It's 11, isn't it? It is 11. This will most likely be 8 pages. And one of the reasons for that is whenever you're shooting something, every page is essentially a minute. Every minute is 90 minutes of production time that will be setting up lights, cameras, rehearsals, and shots. So as a screenwriter, you have a lot of control over how the production should move. And a lot of the times people I work with will take a look at a script and they will see, oh, 30 pages. They'll do the math in their head and they'll automatically be able to comment on whether or not they can shoot it. Something I've learned from writing scripts for other companies, they like it to be tighter. Let's see. Mueller. I'm brown. I laughed. I guess that means it's okay. Yeah, I mean, I just think I could do better. I'm glad that you laughed. I want to do better. I'm happy you liked it though. Yeah. So this third act, this third act kind of has a bridge to it. So she sings a song, song. I'm going to delete this because I'm going to have to rewrite everything in block text later. There's a bridge to it where we are introduced to Lewis. And I think whenever you're introducing a second character, specifically a second principal character, you need to show the differences as much as possible. You can always show how people relate and how people in like why they're friends later. But when you're introducing somebody, you should be able to show why they're different. One of my favorite rules to adhere to is the Snow White rule, which is essentially the audience can only really remember 7 characters at once, like the Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. And so you need to make every character different. You need to make them multifaceted and just like an antonym of whoever they're across from. I wrote this split screen of Estelle being very excited, very engaged, very, very rah, rah, rah. But Lewis is very disengaged. Lewis is very laissez-faire about this whole conversation. He's barely paying attention. It's not his priority at all. Estelle, again, is like fighting, trying to be optimistic. It's only once Lewis sours the whole conversation does she actually acknowledge the fact that he's being kind of a jerk. But we have this little bridge here. We're not going to concentrate on that. When we get to the apartment, let's wait for Lewis to leave. All right, Lewis leaves on page 8. Here we go. Good here? All right. So the third act is the part that I was doing research for, specifically Ms. Marvel. Man, also just read Ms. Marvel. It's so great. It's amazing. I studied Ms. Marvel's origin story because I think it's perfect, specifically because Kamala acknowledges all these ways in which she's not perfect, and you know that she's good-hearted, and that's like one of the cores of Kamala Khan, is that she's a very pure person. But when she gets powers, there's never any doubt that she's going to extrapolate that and become a good-hearted superhero. With Estelle, I specifically peppered in things in Act 1 and 2 of this script where she's inquisitive, she's always willing to help, she's optimistic, she will jump over hurdles and smile at the same time, so that when this transformation happens in the third act, we leave you with the cliffhanger because she undergoes a change, but in the back of your mind, you should be thinking that things are going to be okay. So Estelle, power goes out. She looks for a flashlight, ends up not finding a flashlight, but she finds this AM/FM radio. And she has this very... people on TV think millennials talk to themselves all the time, and I used to hate it, but then I realized, like, I kind of do that, and I kind of talk back to podcasts and movies when I'm watching by myself, so it's okay. But Estelle's fighting with herself, finds this AM radio, and after a moment, she adjusts the knobs in the AM/FM radio, and all lights up. As the signal comes in clear, the light becomes stronger. Eventually, Estelle zeroes in on a station, and the AM/FM radio is beaming as bright as it possibly can. All right, let's figure out what's happening with the storm. Estelle fiddles with the dials until she reaches a new station. This is a very Alan Wake moment, if you're familiar with Alan Wake. Radio DJ comes on, says, it's unusually nice. It's sunny out. It's a perfect night for a walk. Estelle looks outside. It's a monsoon. Why is it, like, what's happening here? The DJ says, this one's for you, Estelle. The AM/FM radio begins to emit a song that sounds like a juiced up version of the song Estelle was singing at the Chicago Cabaret Club hours earlier. Picture like a jazz swing version of My Life Every Day. Estelle, hey, that's my... And as soon as she recognizes that, this lightning hits the AM/FM radio. She's catapulted back. And I think if, well, the intention, who knows if it'll be successful. The intention is that we already know that Estelle is going to be okay. We know that through seeing how she acted throughout the beginning of this episode, this is not something that's going to get her down, but she will be changed. And the fact that the radio DJ knows who she is and is commenting on the weather should indicate that there's something larger happening at play here. Estelle's room lights up like a firework. The song hits a high note. Estelle is blown. Oh, got to capitalize Estelle's name here. That's an easy way for actors to be able to see everything that involves them. Blown back across the room. She hits her closet, lands on a stack of boxes and clothes. Her hair is tinged with fire. Her clothes are cut in places. I can just imagine like little tiny rips. I don't want like clothes like falling off her body. That's weird. After a moment, we hear the rain stop. Then the lights turn on. If you'll notice, all of these things, all of these beats are included in the story treatment, in the pre-writing. Things that can change and things that should be okay to change are, I had the specific moment when she walks in the door, she discovers that the power has gone out. Her brother is seen fiddling with an old AM radio. One of the specific reasons why this was changed is because if Lewis, her brother, finds the radio, one, it takes an action away from Estelle. And she should definitely be the person doing things in this story. She should be the one that's initiating the action. And it's a weaker thing for Lewis to have found the radio and give it to her or surrender it to her. It just doesn't really work out. If Estelle finds it, it becomes more of like a prophecy, like a superhero origin thing. One thing that we notice in in Batman, in Miss Marvel, in Batgirl. These are all people that when they started to get their powers or when they started to embark on being a superhero, people didn't throw things to them. They actively sought out things that they wanted. Um, Also, every time you mentioned her being a cabaret singer, oh, hell yeah. That Justice League episode where Batman sings Am I Blue is one of the best episodes. Also, Zatanna is criminally underrated in the DC universe. One of my favorite characters of all time. Her and Constantine should definitely have a comic. Liz has no idea why I like Zatanna. I just think a magician is awesome in DC. I love it. But yeah, I definitely have thought of that specific episode of Justice League Unlimited many times when writing this. But getting back to Estelle, I want to make her the initiator of action as much as possible, and that's one of the reasons why I am so keen on getting uh, uh, a woman on board to help me flesh this out. Um, I have started writing episode 2 story treatment, but I don't want to get into that because the first draft of episode 2 is only a first draft, and what I'm showing you here is a touched up draft 1. I have a fully redone draft 2 for this first episode, but nothing that I feel great sharing. Um, but mainly what I wanted to do is show you how I make a story treatment, how I worked with 3-act structure, or at least how I like 3-act structure, and how that translates into final draft. Um, why you like a leggy dame in nylons, or have I answered my own question? Man, I this is something I think about a lot. Like, I love Black Canary, I love Zatanna. Like, do I just have a type? What's going on here? Liz is blonde, so I don't know. I really don't get it. But also, my favorite version of Wonder Woman is when she has on like the skinny jeans and the jacket, and everyone hates that. So I don't know. I'm probably just weird on this one. Um, what I would like to do is going forward as we develop this project, I would like to do more of these live streams to one, just have patrons. Well, I was just quoting the show, but you do your thing. Man, I'm gonna have to watch that episode tonight, aren't I? Probably. We've been binging a lot of Supernatural. We just finished season 2, and I love it. But maybe I can convince Liz to watch JLA. What I'd like to do is continue doing more of these streams as the project develops, because, like I said, we're going to be taking a break from some things to launch the Earworm Kickstarter, and I'd like to keep a steady stream of content coming to you. And if this is something that I can do that is fairly accessible, I'd like to continue doing it. Um, that being said, some other things that Versus the Universe is going to be doing soon. Monday, we are shooting the first episode of a pilot season for a project called Table Tanked. If you're not familiar with the Chicago Loot Drop, it's a charity organization that is here in Chicago that I absolutely love. That was from the original TS episode. Man, Muller, you know so much more about this than I do. If you're not familiar with the Chicago Loot Drop organization, Liz and I have worked with them for any number of years now. But the organizer of Loot Drop, Mike Chuck Bretzloff, is a good friend of ours, and he loves teaching people to play games. He also loves beer. So Mike had this idea to do like a how it's played type web series, but to involve alcohol and make it a little bit more kinetic and fun. So we're going to make a few episodes of that show, and we're going to be putting them up on our YouTube channel probably the first few months of next year. We're going to have some special guests on, like Kevin Reeder from the Nerdologues, Mel Fox from Get Hype. I'm sure Liz and I will be on an episode. We've got some other people that we haven't confirmed yet, but it's going to be super fun. And in addition to that, we're going to be launching one more new podcast that I've been percolating over for years now. It's a podcast called Fan Fix, and it's a show where a host will interview a super fan of a fandom, and that fan will have a chance to fix something about something in their fandom. A fan fix. It's like a fan fiction, but you're repairing it. Um, we've been searching for a host for a long time, and I'm really happy to say that our good friend Nicole Keating from Fake Geek Girl Productions is going to be hosting that one. It's really going to be a super fun show. We'll have more information on that probably the first of the year. We're probably going to be launching that end of January, early February. But I can't wait to listen to more of that. I've listened to a few episodes and they're super good. What else? What else? Yeah, those are the two big things that we're going to be starting, along with launching our own card game. Once again, thanks for joining me. How's it drunk? Fix the fandom or fix the franchise? I feel like all fandoms need the same fix. The tagline is, hold on a second. I'm going to do something. I'm going to stop screen sharing for a second. I've stopped. I'm going to show you guys the logo. We just got this nice new logo made. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so let's go back to screen share. Okay. So this is the logo of Fanfix. We literally just got this. Our artist Madge is fantastic. She made the Versus the Universe logo and a few of her other logos. But I love this because she made it look like an old VHS tape. And the tagline is down here: because no fandom is beyond repair. Nicole and I talked at length about how even your favorite fandom is problematic in some way. I think that can be said of everything. Everything's problematic. Liz and I have talked about that several times, like at Gen Con on our panel and pretty much in concert at Geek Show. But no fandom is beyond repair. Every fandom needs fixing. But Nicole is fantastic. She's got the right energy for this show. We're going to be launching that soon. I can't wait. So cool. Yeah. I thought I was only going to be doing this for like a half hour. It's been about 50 minutes. Seems like we only have Duck in the chat. Hello, fiance. Hi. If anyone else has questions, now is the time to ask them, because I'm probably going offline in just a little bit. Now I see why people have moderators for this sort of thing. Usually Sam would be the one moderating, but he's working a gig tonight. I think that's going to be about it. I think that was all right. Has he gotten used to calling her fiancé? Oh man, no, absolutely not. I woke up this morning and I was like, girlfriend, fiancé. I only have, we're getting married in October, so I only have 10 more months to say fiance. So yeah, I'm gonna have to get used to that more and more. It's weird. It's cool, but it's weird. It's like the word is foreign to me because I've never said it before. So like it still feels weird in my mouth. That's a term from theater school that weirds people out. We used to take voice and speech classes, and you would learn how to do accents and in dialects. And the Fiance sounds like knockoff Beyonce. Well, everyone's trying to rip off Beyonce. I mean, even Kelly Rowland was trying to rip off her for a little bit longer, but what, 2 singles and then never heard of again? Michelle Williams, she went to Aida on Broadway. Yeah, everyone's a ripoff of Beyonce. But our voice and speech teacher would always say, you got to get that accent feeling good in your mouth. And I'm like, that's weird. It's a weird thing to say. But also we were awful college kids. All right, cool. I'm gonna pack up. I'm going to help my fiance with dinner. And thank you for joining the stream. This is very much a learning experience for me. Hopefully, we'll be doing more of this as time goes on. And thank you for supporting Versus the Universe, even if it's just watching. Cool. All right. I will definitely tell Liz everyone says hi. Bye, everybody. See you.